Yesterday, Sayadaw said that for those who are born human, the most important task for one's entire life is to be a true human, to have a humane mentality, and while one is human, to develop special human knowledge. But most people don't know the true way to make themselves a true human being, to make their mentality humane, and to bring about special human knowledge. Not knowing the way, they don't do it. They don't do this. And therefore they are not able to control or master themselves. And not having the abilities to control themselves, to govern themselves, their life simply goes in a helter-skelter way, and it ends in ruins. The Buddha said that if we are going to apply the basic method to become a true human, the method to develop a humane mentality and to develop special human knowledge, we need to have the ability to control ourselves. We need to have 5 faculties. The first is saddha, the power of faith. Second, virya, the power of courage. Third, sati. Fourth, samadhi, collectedness of mind. And fifth, panya, or wisdom. If we have these abilities, these powers, to that extent, to the extent that we have these abilities, we can master ourselves and we can gain a victory over ourselves. And this is very important. These powers, these faculties, don't just arise on their own. They can't be transferred to us by someone who has them if we don't have them. And they can't be created in us by a supreme being, a powerful being who just says, "May it be." One has to know the method for bringing them about, and then one has to make them keen and sharp, strong, precise, and courageous. And there are 9 causes for these powers to become that way. And among these, the first is in Pali, upananam sankaranam kayameva pasati. That means that it must have initial belief that the mind and matter, nama and rupa, which arises due to causes, passes away. One must understand this, as one must trust in this. And following on this trust, one has to observe these mind and matter phenomena, which are related as cause and effect, day by day. And as one does, one will come to see and understand well how they arise and then pass away immediately, born and then die. They are continually, the old is being replaced by the new. So what one has to do for this to happen is to fulfill the 8 remaining causes. The mind and matter that are related as cause and effect, that make up one's stream of existence, are called sankhara. Sankhara means something which occurs as cause and effect. And these sankharas are also occurring every moment, moment by moment, one by one, Opanopana, they occur again and again. The old is always being replaced by the new. There's no rest in this. Although we may be sleeping, they continue. And all of these sankharas, mind and matter occurring due to causes, they all arise and then pass away. So we are practicing to see this. First we must understand it on a theoretical basis before we practice. And it can be described as just three things: the base element or receptor element, the striker element, and the spark element. And element means something that has its own nature and it has its own process. All mind and matter, all sankharas, can be divided into just these three categories: receptors or bases, sense bases, the striker, and the spark. And this Sayadaw spoke about this previously, and today he will also speak about it because now is the time to go over it again. Among these, the base or the receptor element is where the striker comes and strikes. It's the place where the striker element strikes. And there are 6 kinds of sense bases or receptors. Cakkupasada is the eye base. Then there's the ear base, the nose base, the tongue base, the body base, and number 6 is the heart base. And among these 6 receptors or base elements, in the physical eye, there's a receptor for visible objects, for light, color, and it's sort of like a mirror in a way. So it's able to catch the visible object. In the ear, there's a receptor for sound. You can't actually point to it and say, this is it, this is where the sound is received. But the sound strikes the ear and it becomes apparent at that place in the ear, on the ear base, within the physical ear. In the nose too, there's a receptor for odors, whether they're fragrant or foul. The odors come and they strike the nose and they become apparent at the nose base. On the tongue, when we chew food, there are receptors for taste: sweet, sour, hot, bland, sharp, astringent, and salty and bitter. And these different tastes become apparent as we chew the food, and they're received by the receptors on the tongue. In the body, everywhere there is moisture, everywhere there is some type of moisture, there's the capacity to receive hard and soft, hot, cold, warm, stiff, tense movement. So all these types of things can become apparent at the body base. When hardness or softness strikes the body base, then one knows hardness or softness. When something gentle or something coarse and rough strikes the body base, then one knows the gentleness or the coarseness. When something hot or cold strikes the body base, one knows heat or cold. When stiffness or tension strikes the body base, then one knows stiffness or tension. This receptor for all these kinds of touch is spread throughout the body, and this receptor can catch hardness, softness, hot, heat, cold, warmth, stiffness, tension. So this is the body base. And then the heart base. The heart base is where we experience things that are not directly seen, not directly heard, smelled, tasted, touched, but it's as if we're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. The mind imagines these, and the heart base is what is the receptor for these experiences, these imagined experiences. So there are 6 receptor elements. These physical sense bases, receptors, are really there. One can't say that they are not there, but one can't put one's finger on them or point to them physically. However, we can know logically, we can know why they are there or how they are there. And according to the Buddhist text, the reason why we have the capability to see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think, is because in the past we did good deeds to bring about these capabilities in the present, so that now in this life we have eyes which can see, ears which can hear, a nose which can smell, tongue which can taste, a body which can feel, and a heart. So these come about due to our past actions, due to our karma. In the present life, there are supporting factors for these. They're supported by consciousness, citta, to the extent that our consciousness is good. It affects our senses. They're affected by the weather around us. The weather is also a supporting cause. When the weather is not good, it can affect our senses. And nutrition, ahara. If we don't get enough nutrition, then certainly our senses will be affected by this. So in our past, according to the Buddhist text, the cause for these capabilities to arise is the actions done in the past, karma. And the supporting causes for these in the present life that cause them to continue to be functional are consciousness, citta, udu, and ahara, consciousness, weather, and nutrition. So scientists have not been able to find out why these capabilities come to be, the sense bases. But they admit that yes, there is a cause for them, and we just haven't been able to find it. So according to the Buddhist text, it is because of past actions, and supported by the consciousness, weather, and nutrition, citta, udu, and ahara, in the present life. In one's stream of existence, just as there are 6 receptors, there are also 6 elements which come and strike these 6 sense bases. In Pali, these are called aramana, or objects. And on the eye base, the visible object strikes the eye. The ear base, the sound wave comes and strikes the ear. Odors strike at the nose base. Flavors strike the tongue base. And the tangible objects, hardness, softness, heat, cold, warmth, stiffness, tension, movement, these strike the body base. And there are various imagined objects that appear at the heart base, or manodvara, the things which are seen in the mind, heard, smelled, tasted, touched in the mind. So these are all striker elements. And so as there are 6 sense bases, 6 receptors, there are also 6 strikers. The spark element is purely mental, only mental. And the mental components that make up the spark element are knowing, contact, and feeling, or consciousness, contact, and feeling. So there are other mental components that arise during sense experience, but for yogis, just these three are pointed out: knowing, contact, and feeling. So an example of what happens is that a visible object comes and strikes the eye base, and there's knowing of the visible object. So this is seeing consciousness, knowing the sight. And consciousness, or the mind, and the visible object come into contact at the eye base. So this is called contact, seeing contact, or phassa in Pali. When it's a good sight, then there's the feeling that it's good to see. When it's a bad sight, an ugly sight, then there's the feeling that it's bad, feels bad to see. And when it's something ordinary, then there's just a neutral, ordinary feeling. So these are all the types of feeling that can come due to sight. And this is what the Buddha pointed out as these three make up the spark element: knowing, contact, and feeling. People who want a fire take a box of matches. On the matchbox there's a strip with gritty material, and they take a match from the box. The match has a head, which also has some hard material on it. And if we just leave it at that, if we don't strike the match head to the matchbox, there won't be any spark. But on the other hand, if we strike the match head onto the matchbox on the strip, then a spark will arise. And this is like how sense experience arises. The receptor element is similar to the matchbox, to the place on the matchbox where the match is struck. And the match with the head, the match head, is like the striker element. And when the spark arises due to striking the match head on the matchbox, fire arises, a spark comes, and this is like the spark element. So fire comes, and where does it come from? Some will say, well, we see the match head burning, so it comes from the match head. And this is true. But if you just leave the match head by itself without striking it to the box, will there be any fire? And if the box is not present with its strip of gritty material, will there be any fire breaking out? And without the effort of the person to strike the match against the box, will any fire break out? It happens because these three causes come together. So, can you actually point to the fire, to where it is in the box, or point to the fire and say where it is on the match head, or point to where it is in the human effort involved? It's not located in any of these places. It's only when these three parts come together that fire actually occurs. And it's the same way in seeing. There's a visible object that comes and strikes the eye base. And when that happens, there's knowing of the sight, seeing consciousness. There's the mind coming into contact with the sight, at the eye base, seeing contact, and there's feeling which arises, feeling good, bad, or neutral. So the spark element arises. In hearing, it's more obvious. Inside the ear, there's a receptor for sound, and the sound wave comes and strikes the ear. And then there's knowing of the sound. There's the contact of the mind and the sound at the ear base. And there's a feeling. When the sound is a good one, then there's a good feeling. When the sound is a bad one, then there's a bad feeling. And when the sound is ordinary or neutral, there's a neutral feeling. So these three elements come to be: the hearing consciousness, hearing contact, and hearing feeling. They arise due to causes. This is obvious. No one comes and makes them arise. There's no great powerful being that commands when, for example, if it's striking a match against a matchbox, there's no being that comes and says, make it burn, may there be fire. It's not like that. If one strikes the box with the match head, then fire will arise regardless of any supreme being. So there's not a creator that is causing it to happen. It has nothing to do with the creator. The most obvious example is how the sound of the Dhamma talk reaches the ears of the yogi. And when the sound strikes the yogi's ears, then hearing occurs. So in the ear, there's a receptor for sound, the receptor element. And the sound of the speaker's voice comes and strikes the ear. The sound appears at the ear base, and the mind knows the sound. Knowing of the sound arises. The mind and the sound meet at the ear. Contact arises. And due to contact, there's feeling, good or bad or neutral. So these are this is what arises in the moment of hearing. This is the spark element. And if we examine these, the first, the sense base, the receptor, and the second, the striker, these are rupa, or physical matter. Rupa is that which does not know. It has no knowing capability. And the third group is the spark. This contains knowing. Knowing is present. And therefore this is called nama, or mental. So there are two of these. The first two, the base and the striker, are physical, and the third is mental. So what are these? Is there a person or a being there? No, there's just a base element, striker element, and a spark element. Is there a man or a woman? Is there a soul? No, it's simply the base and the striker and the spark. And the spark is just knowing the object, contact, and feeling. So what really is there in the moment of hearing is the base element, the striker element, and the spark element. And to know this, one has to observe hearing at the moment that it arises. What happens if we don't observe? The Buddha said that the truth of suffering, dukkha satya, must be known practically. And it must be known experientially. And if one does not observe at the moment of hearing, what arises is moha, or delusion, ignorance about what is really there, or knowing it in the wrong way. knowing it not at all, or knowing it wrongly. So every time, for most people, every time hearing occurs, this is what happens. The ear and sound, two parts are physical. So there's the ear base, the sound wave. These two parts are physical, and these constitute the truth of suffering. These qualify as dukkha satya. Hearing, contact, feeling, these are mind. Hearing, knowing the sound. Contact, and feeling how the sound is experienced, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Hearing, contact, feeling, these are mind, these are mental. In the hearing, the truth of suffering can be found. What arises in hearing is the truth of suffering. And in order to have knowledge arise regarding the truth of suffering, dukkha jnana, then when it arises, to make knowledge arise, what do we need to do? How do we need to observe? Should we note it as base element, or striker, or spark? No, we can't note it like that, because it takes too long to note it like that. The object will be gone before we finish noting it. So we just have to observe it as a whole thing. We observe it as hearing. We note hearing. And when we do this, so it is said hearing, note and know like this. When we note the whole phenomena as hearing, sometimes what we know will be the physical base where the sound is happening. We'll know the ear. Sometimes the mind will be aware of the physical sound, the sound wave that is striking the ear. Sometimes the mind will come to know the hearing consciousness, or the contact, the sense of contact, or the feeling involved. This is what has come to be known, but when we observe it, we need to observe it as a whole. Hearing, note and know like this. We don't analyze it theoretically and know it in this way. We can't do that. The mind and matter which Sayadaw has just spoken about occur, they are evident while hearing is happening. So in order to observe them, one can't be slow or sluggish. One has to be alert and active and decisive. One has to also aim in a focused way. One has to have the jhana quality of being focused accurately on the object. If one has both aiming and effort, then sometimes one will be aware, this is where the hearing is happening. One will be aware that this is the place where hearing happens, or one will also sometimes be aware of what is striking the ear. This is what comes and strikes the ear. This is what is heard. One will be aware of the sound. Sometimes one will be aware of hearing, how there's knowing of the sound. Sometimes one will be aware of the mind and the sound meeting. And sometimes one will be aware of the feeling that it's good to hear or bad to hear. So we will know one of these components that occur in the moment of hearing. There's a group of things that happen, and we'll know one of them. We observe it as a whole, and we know whichever one is obvious at that moment. In doing so, we automatically come to know the parts which are not evident We know these two, so it's important to understand this. And an analogy for this is how we come to know what a person looks like. If we want to know the individual parts, the individual features in a person's face, first of all we have to look at the whole face, and we have to take in the whole face. And as we look at the person's face, looking at it as a whole, one will start to see specific parts within it. One will know sometimes one will happen to notice the forehead, what the forehead is like. Sometimes as one looks, one will know what the cheeks are like, or one's attention will fall on the nose, how it's pointed or not. And sometimes one will be aware of how the lips are, or the jaw. So one has to take the whole thing in. One has to encompass the whole thing with one's looking, and one has to be focused. So taking it in as a whole is like looking at the person's face, and the focused attention falls on whatever is prominent at that moment. In the moment of hearing, the base element, the striker element, and the spark element arise due to causes coming together. And this is what is called sankhara, that which arises due to causes coming together. If there is cause, then hearing will arise. And it is said, upanupana, it occurs. If it occurs, hearing, there's hearing and it disappears. There's hearing and it disappears, moment by moment. Due to causes, it occurs. And having occurred, having arisen, it does not stay there. It does not stay. The yogis are hearing, and the hearing disappears. There's hearing, and then it goes away. Hearing happens, it goes away. So one has to believe that this is true. One has to understand this from a theoretical standpoint, and one must have confidence that this is the way things are. What arises due to causes does not stay. All things that arise due to causes disappear. And Sayadaw is speaking about this so that the yogis will understand. If one wants to know practically sankharas, that which arises due to causes, one needs to observe them when they happen. And one is sure to come to see how they arise and then pass away in a fleeting manner. Just as it is with hearing, so too with the moment of seeing, with the moment of smelling, with the experience of tasting, touching, and knowing. All these experiences are also made up of elements. And Sayadaw will explain about this tomorrow. People who are intelligent will understand from this much. So for tonight, that's all. So